in Boulder, Colorado. And it's cool because she gets to live out there and then goes to school and all that. And then she gets to come back and see us. And we love it. And we go back and forth. She was just here a few weeks ago. And it was just great to have her. I love my granddaughter. She loves me. She loves to sing. We get in the truck together. We drive around. We play music. We sing to each other. We practice all kinds of things. And when she comes back, she goes, Grandpa, let's get in the pickup. Let's just drive around. Let's sing, you know. I'm like, okay, I like that relationship I have with her. That's part of our legacy for who she is and what goes on. Her mom is the dean of students at Boulder High School. So she has high expectations and requirements made of her. She also has a lot of choices to make. This is a year of transition for her. She's a senior in high school, and therefore, you know, you have to make some choices and decisions, and it's not always a time of life when we as parents or grandparents love to see our kids growing to the next level. Y'all been there? At the last church, I got about this far in the sermon, somebody got up and left out of the sanctuary, and I thought, what did I do, offend them, you know? After church, they came to me with tears in their eyes, and they go, Pastor, you did that once before. You talked about kids graduating. I got somebody graduating this year, and I'm not ready for it. I had to leave. And I said, that's okay. You can leave anytime you want to, you know, et cetera, and make it happen. But, you know, that's a stress for us as parents, right? Grandparents. But it's nothing compared to the stress it is for the kids that we love and that we care for as part of their life of things. My granddaughter says to me, you know, Grandpa, what I want? I want things just settled. Is that what you do sometimes? I just want things settled. Just get it settled. Kind of like the Queen of England, you know? I just want things settled. That's what I want in my life and in my world. She says to me, change does not come easy for me, Grandpa. And I thought, you love change. You were in change all the time. I said, I know I am, Grandpa. But in reality, I don't really care for change. There's a time where I just like things the way it is. I like it to stay in that way. My granddaughter loves people, and people love her in return. Last year at this time, I went out to Colorado, and she said to me, Grandpa, you want to come to eat with me at school? And I thought, oh, last time I did this, you were in kindergarten or something. You know, sure, I love it. So I got there, and I thought, man, there's so many kids in that school. And I thought, I don't know what this is going to be like. And I got there and everything else, and we sat down, and all of a sudden, we couldn't eat. She couldn't eat because all these kids came over and kept talking to her and connecting and everything else. And I thought, man, you got quite a fan club. She said, well, Dad, Grandpa said I lead the student body, you know, so I got to know everybody, know what's going on. I take care of them. They're kind of my little ministry, you know. I want to find out what's going on and what's happening in their life. She tries to start new causes. Whenever there's a need or something in the community, she's always starting something up, and she's playing out. She's all around great. I love her. She's a great person for doing that. But this starts her senior year. And so I asked her last year, I said, so what's your plans? You know, grandpas like to do this kind of thing, you know. We think to ourselves, you're not ahead of the game here. You got to be. This is what it's about, especially when we like things together. And I said to her, what's your plan? Where are you going to go? Where are you going to go to school? What are you thinking about for next year? And I tell you, talk about hit a wall. Oh, did I hit a wall with her? She was very kind to me and loving to me because I said to her, where do you want to go? Stop procrastinating. Tell me what's going on in your life, etc. And she says, Grandpa, I'm too busy to think about that right now. There's a lot of time left. You don't have to push me into this. She says that in love, but I understand it. I want to enjoy my senior year, and I want to enjoy my friends. That's what she said to me. I got things to do and places to go, and right now all I want to do is that. She says, you know, Grandpa, when you say that to me, you know what it is? It turns it into stress and pressure in my life. Do you ever get that kind of thing? Stress and pressure? You don't want to do it, but you do it, and you think to yourself, this just causes me stress. So we procrastinate, we wait till the last minute, we do all those kinds of things. It's just part of our life, you know. How we deal with stress and pressure into our life. Or like she always says to me, I just don't want to talk about that now. And I think, okay, then I won't talk about it now. I'll talk about it later. Next week, next time, I'll put it all together as make it about that way. Jesus ran into the same situation with the disciples. Every time he wanted to talk to them about, you know, what we need to follow me, do what I would do, they were busy people. You know, they were like, I got things to do. I can't be thinking about that right now. Now, Jesus, on the other hand, knew he got 3 years to go here. We can't waste any time. We got to move this thing along. It's 1 year less than what you go to college, you know. I mean, we got to put this thing together. We got to change the world. We got to make all kinds of things happen. There's a vision and a plan and a purpose for all of them. And so when he asked them about getting their life together and following him, you remember what some of them came up with? They said, well, you know, some went immediately to follow him, but others said, you know what, really, Jesus, I mean, let's be honest. I'm busy. I got time. We don't have to get into this and start asking for commitments and all kinds of changes to go in our life. Besides, we want to enjoy our time with friends and family. That's in essence what the disciples had to say. And so Jesus said, okay, let's talk about it. But I don't want to do that now, the disciples would say to him over and over again, even people who followed him on an occasion, unless they were healed of blindness or leprosy, in which case they jumped around for joy and ran around and told everybody what they were able to do as part of life itself. It's hard, you know. It's hard to drive, or it's hard to mow a yard when you're looking backward. Have you ever tried it? I have a neighbor about 94 years old that lives down me. He's got the oldest, rustiest mower. I don't know how this thing even works. And this guy comes up to my house, this little patch of grass I've got, and he mows my yard. Now, my yard is half the size of this whole area. It's not big at all, and I like it that way. But he likes to come and he likes to mow my yard. But when he does, he works and he gets the mower up to the top. He had to go all those steps and get it up. He carries it up. I can't believe it. And then all of a sudden, he starts the mower and he mows like this. Until he hits something. Now, the other day I went out in the summer and I said, Connie, what's our beautiful glass table and chairs doing all over the floor outside? He goes, I don't know. She goes, it must be he backs into them all the time. Makes it happen. I said, what in the world? But that's the way he mows, you know. Now, it's okay if you mow a yard that way because you can always mow forward. You know, you can always cover the patches that you missed and all that. But I have discovered, for those of you who are farmers, that it is very difficult for you to plow in that same way, right? The first furrow that you plow is the one that sets the pace for the rest of the field. You understand that? Now, I first learned that when my grandfather, who had a John Deere dealership down in Albia and all that kind of stuff, got out there with the old John Deere A tractor. Remember that with the little coffee can over the stack, you know? And he'd get that thing going, everything else. He'd go, okay. My father said one day, he goes, I want you to plow a furrow down the road. First furrow goes into the ground. I thought, oh, I can do that. So I got on the tractor, got it all going, took the can off, got everything started, ready to go. And away I went, going forward like this. Trying to get that line to be straight till I got the other side. Got the other side. My father said to me, what are you going to do now? I said, give up, maybe? No, I don't know what. And he goes, well, you got to plow the furrow again. How do I do that? He said, just follow the line you just made. And he said, just follow that, and you could get it done. And I said, but I'm not going to follow that line. That line goes all over the place. It'll be a mess by the time we get to the end of the field. He goes, that's right. You messed up. Well, now, how am I supposed to do that? He goes, do you know? I said, no. He said, I'll tell you what you do. He said, you take the stack of that pipe, that stack pipe coming up out of that tractor, and he said, you aim it at that fence post down the way, and you go straight to that fence post. And just keep looking ahead. Don't look back. Look straight ahead. And when you get to the other side, you turn around and look, you will not believe how straight of a furrow that you have gone. Now, reality is we might be able to mow a yard that way, but it's really hard for us to plow a field that way because if not, we set the pace. And before you know it, all of the pace seems to be off and wiggly and going all over the place. But isn't that sometimes how our life is? Sometimes we get looking around saying, I don't know how it goes. I don't want to look forward. I'm scared. I don't want to look, you know, and that's the way it goes. It's what Jesus was saying to the folks he ran into in those situations. He said to them, he goes, come on, I want you to do this. You know, but for some of us, it's hard to do. It's like trying to drive a car going backwards. Do you all understand what I just said? I had a lady work for me in Okoboji, and what she did, her father had a red convertible. And so when she was in high school, her dad let her, on special occasions, drive the red convertible. She'd go pick up her friends. Now, she lived in this little town that was little. Not many people there, nothing. Her dad said, be careful with my car. Don't put too many miles on it, and you be careful. So you know what she did? She got all her friends in the car, and she drove all the way to Okoboji. What better place to go than Okoboji? She lived right by there. She wanted to be there where all the action and fun was happening, so she'd go there. And then you know what? She'd drive home backwards down the country roads. Now, you think to yourself, that's crazy. No, it's not. It's smart. Because back then, when you drove the car backwards, you know what happened? What? Why are you shaking your head? You know this? You take the mileage off when you drive backwards. So she'd drive that country road all the way home and take that mileage off so her father never would know that she and the friends all took off. Can you just vision that going down the road backwards with a bunch of girls in a car? let alone guys, and think about how in the world am I going to get there and everything else. It becomes a difficult situation, but in reality, that's what goes on. Jesus says to his disciples, some situations, I want you to come follow me. Some follow, but others said, I got to mend my nets, or I got work to do tomorrow. I got to do those things and get it taken care of. And one of them even said, you know what, Jesus, I got to bury my father. And the rest of the disciples said, your dad's not even dead. Yeah, but I got to bury him when he dies. I got to wait around until he dies. Now, you laugh at that. I think Jesus laughed at it too. Because that's when Jesus said this, let the dead bury the dead. That's what he said to him. You got to be about your father's business. Let the dead bury the dead. Don't you be worrying about that kind of thing. You get about the task of what you're doing. But it's amazing the kind of things that we put up as roadblocks, isn't it, in our life? We say, I can't do that because my father's going to die someday, whatever. I got to hang around here just in case the wind comes and something blows away. I got to be ready to do those kinds of things. Jesus had a prescription for this in Luke chapter 9. He said this, no one puts his hand to the plow and looks back is fit for service in the kingdom of God. Did you hear what I just said? No one who puts his hand to the plow, looks back, is fit for the service in the kingdom of God. I live that. I understand what that's all about. That's what Jesus says here. He said that's what it's all about. In the Message Bible, he proclaims it. No procrastination, he says. No backward looks. You can't put God's kingdom off till tomorrow. He says, seize the day. That's what it's all about. That's what we're to do. That's what it's all about. Jesus told them, anyone who lets himself be distracted from the plan I have for them will find things not going as smooth. I'm preaching this now. Daily dealings with all kinds of bumps in the road, and we think it's normal. We'll find it hard to go or even think forward, and you'll find that looking backwards can yield a life that is messed up in small and in big ways as part of our life. John Wesley understood that. He understood, even though the people were called Anglicans, they were messed up. Things were happening all the time. And the problem was, unless you belonged to the church and were well enough to get in, had the money to get in, you didn't even get to be there for the preaching on Sunday morning. And John Wesley, who was an Anglican pastor, said, that's the only place I can preach and all I can do. And all of a sudden he realizes that that's not what it's about. He said, man, it's got to be something more than that. John Wesley had bumps in the road all over the place. He was an Anglican preacher. He learned the Old Testament in the original language backwards like he did the New Testament in Greek. Can you imagine having it down that hard? But he messed up all over the place. He just couldn't get it together. And so he decided what he needed to do was get a group of folks together. And he did, people that were part of the school at Oxford. And he started what he called the Holy Club. What it was were people that got together and they began to ask the question, how's your spirit today? Here's what they ask. How are you doing? And then how are you being? What are you doing that transforms you so that you are somebody different? Did you hear what I just said? That's being and doing. How are you doing, he would say. And that's the only question they would ask. They'd sit around, they'd have to answer that question. They knew what the question was for the test next time they got together. And the question was, what are you doing? How are you doing? How are you doing about that? Works of mercy, works of piety. You know what I mean by that? Works of piety. How do you go into church, you pray, and you do that because that works of mercy, that's the balance. Are you doing good for others? What's that about? How are you making those kinds of things happen? And so this Holy Club he had, they started calling things like the Bible moths or the enthusiastics. But the worst thing they called them, you ready for this? Methodists. They had a method. And John Wesley hated it. He goes, I hate that word, that name. That's not what it's about. But John, look at what you're doing. You get them into a method, you ask them to do something, and you know what? That's why they're called method. Today we call it the United Methodist Church. That's what we call it today. Why? Because we got a method. At least we used to. We did. At one time, we asked the questions. Every pastor had to ask the question to the congregation, what do you want to be like at the end of the year? And then hold ourselves accountable to that. And the church would begin to practice it by putting together Bible studies or things like that in order to make sure, service groups, that kind of thing, in order to make it happen. If you were an alcoholic, and also you were part of a Methodist group, you know what they did? The group would come and meet at your house at night when the bar is open. And then when they left, some wouldn't leave. They'd sleep outside of your door to make sure you weren't tempted and walked out. In fact, John Wesley even said sometimes he posted somebody outside the window in case they crawled out the window. Do you understand that? That's being and doing. He said, if you want to be somebody different, we got to help you in your doing. We got to help you put it together again. That's what we used to do as part of that. The only challenge is we don't. We were a people that were different than anybody else. You understand, no other religion or faith of that day did anything like this. They were Methodists. That's what it was about. They were becoming people of faith. And people saw it and they began to see the difference in their life and what was going on in their life. You do something different in order to be something different. That's what John Wesley said. The same thing Jesus said. I want you to be different than the world. Don't be transformed to the way the world is. Be different than the world. You know what? And when you do, people will look at you and go, I want to be like you. When the bombs start to fall, you're people who go, we're going to pray about this. And people understand that and know. My granddaughter called me. She called me Monday night. She said to me, Grandpa, Tuesday night, Grandpa, oh, she said, what are we going to do? I said, what do you think we should do? Pray. Good answer. You get left in the will again. Yes, you did good. I mean, you know, and I bet for some of us in our life, that's not the first thing we thought of in reality. Maybe I hate the president or whatever you came up with, but in reality, it's a time for us to come together and say, you know what, we got to be people of God. We got to do something about this and see what's going on. John Wesley would say, how's your doing and how's your being? How are you doing and what is it all about? I said to my granddaughter, where do you see yourself in a year? In school? What school? What are you trying out for? What are you trying to do with this whole thing? But I have a good relationship with my granddaughter. She's my legacy. So I always say to her, where is God nudging you in this year ahead? Huh? That sounds smart, doesn't it, for a grandpa to say? Our parents can't say that, but I can say it because she expects it out of me. But I think that's the way it should be. I'm a little different, and I should be different for her. Where's God nudging you? I said to her as part of the whole time itself. You know, where would you like to see yourself in your faith journey this coming year? I ask her that stuff. Now, the reason is because every week I call her, and I say, how's your nudgings going? Where's God calling you to go? How's it changed? You still got the same thing in mind for what you want to do at the end of the year and everything else. Why? Because I'm getting older. And you know what? I soon discovered that it's all about my legacy. It's my grandkids and kids. And if you have to realize the kind of world they've got to face, did you see that out there? Now you think about that. That should make you sleepless at night thinking about that kind of stuff. So how are we proofing them? I say, oh God, send 100,000 angels to surround Chloe and just keep her safe. That's what I want for her. And I want her to hear that about her grandpa. So when it comes time for the obituary and for my funeral, at least she's able to stand up and say, my grandpa did this for me all the time. I thought, that's what I want to say. That's my legacy for her. Because you know what? I want to brand her so she does it to her kids and her kids do it to her kids. And she understands because she's able to say, when the bombs started falling, I started praying because that's what your grandpa would have done. And I told him, and you know what? I want you to see the difference of things that are happening and make it part of your life itself. This week, I asked her, I said, so where's God nudging you in the year ahead? Where's your spiritual journey? Where are you going on that whole thing? She had something to talk about this week, and I love that. It was part of our world itself. She called this week late one night, late, very late. And we went, oh no. And I woke up and I thought, what in the, I had 50,000 things go through my mind. And all of a sudden she said, Grandpa, Grandma, I have something good. I have news to share with you. And I thought, oh my God, what happened? It's too late at night to be talking about this. I thought, I'm not going to sleep. And she said, it's some good news. I go, that's relative. What is this good news? She goes, I got accepted at the University of Colorado. I said, what? She got, I got accepted at the University of Colorado. Now, she's really great. I don't know why she even thought she would, but she was worrying about that. And I said, whoa, I said, that's great. That's wonderful that you did that. That is amazing. She goes, I'm really happy. She talks kind of slow sometimes. I'm really happy. I go, oh, Zen dance. This is great. You got into a school you want to go to. It's like being accepted 4 times to the University of Iowa. When you get for the University of Colorado is a place that everybody wants to go when they're in school. Not that I always want it for her, but that's where she wanted to go and she wanted to make it happen. She goes, yeah, Grandpa, it happens to me. And I thought, that is wonderful. That is so cool that you have that. And she said to me, yeah. She said, but you know what's really good about it? I said, what's that? This is what she said to me. I have options now. Do you hear that? I have options. I get to choose. And you know what? That's an empowering thing. You and I get to choose the same way. We could choose to do everything we have or to make it different. It's part of our life itself. God says, I've got a message for you as the Christians of faith. This week I was cleaning up my basement. And I got one of my old Bibles out. I forgot. I got Bibles all over the place. I got this Bible. I pulled this thing out and I started looking through it. I think, what's in here? And you know what? It was the first sermon I ever preached to you. And it was those words that you read today. You know, what's the Great Commission? What's the greatest commandment? You know, what are the things they ask us to do? We need to remember that sometimes. We forget. You know, it's like the folks in the Old Testament where all of a sudden they pulled up the altar one day and they looked behind it and there was a scroll and they couldn't figure out what the scroll was, and the scroll talked about what God wanted them to do, and the priest started crying and the king said, we're going to have to read this scroll to everybody because we forgot what we're supposed to do. We need to make this happen day by day. It's what it's about. What are you planning to do, said Wesley. What does God look like? What is God nudging you to do? Do you listen to nudges? No, we just jump away from him and go, I'm not ready yet. I'm not going to do this. It makes me pressure. I don't like to do those kinds of things. God says, do you realize the pressure that you go through? And you realize the release of pressure and my promise to be with you is part of it? So God invites us. So Romans, the 12th chapter. Now, think about this. Romans, got it in your head? Don't think about monkeys. Don't think about Romans. Now it's there. Romans. And then a dozen eggs, 12. All right? Romans. Thank you. I'll try that one more time. Romans 12. Now, here's what he says. You got to listen to this. This is great. This is the best thing. Here's what he says. So here's what I want you to do. Now, this is Paul writing to the Romans. So make sure they got it clear. They had a wonderful life going on. All kinds of fun and frolic and everything else. He said, you got to get this together. But here's what I want you to do so you understand. God helping you take your everyday, ordinary life. We've read this before. You remember this? You're sleeping, eating, going to work, and walking around life and place it before God as an offering. Got that image? Embracing what God does for you is the place it before God as an offering. Embracing what God does for you is the best thing that you can do for Him. Don't be so well adjusted to your culture that you fit into everything without even thinking. Instead, fix your attention on God. You'll be changed from the inside out. This is God saying this, not me. It's God saying this to you. To you. Readily recognize what God wants from you and quickly respond to it, unlike the culture around you, always dragging you down to its level of immaturity. God brings the best out of you and develops some well-formed maturity in you. That's what's on that little piece of paper I handed to you today. Because I want you to take that home, put that up. I want you to pray about that. I want you to look at that. Because that's what this reminds us of. Don't be drugged down by the culture. If I listened to the television the other night, no wonder I felt like the end of the world. Are you kidding me? Nobody on there said, we need to pray about this. Nobody even said, we need to think about this. Cover your heads. I thought, I can do that. But are you praying for those troops that are on the front line? Are you praying for everybody? Are you praying that all of a sudden we just calm down maybe a little bit if we can? I don't know. I'm not in control, so I don't know those things. I pray for our leaders. I pray for those kinds of folks. So that's what's important for us. John Wesley said it's critically important for us to be at a point in our lives where we're intentional. Because if we don't have a mark, we'll miss it every time. And we don't even care because we don't know where it is. It's mowing a yard backwards spiritually. You with me? Mowing a yard backwards spiritually. I pass out a purple sheet to you. Do you see it today? I want you to take it out for me. If you don't have a purple sheet, raise your hand up because I have some guys in the back who will hand you a purple sheet and a pen. If you don't have a pen, hold your hand up and let them know. They'll bring you pens and paper. Okay, so you've got one. I just want everybody to make sure you get one as part of that. Oh, we got one up here. And do we have everybody has a pen? Okay, here's what I want you to do. I want you to spend a moment and I want you to prayerfully consider where God is nudging you and what God may want you to be on your spiritual journey by the end of the year. Now, why is that important? Because as a church, we need to know where it is you're traveling. Otherwise, we're going to develop programs and all kinds of stuff that may be nowhere that you need to help you. And we want to help you, but we got to know what the need is to do that. We don't want to just design stuff. We want to hear what you have going on in your life, and we can do something about that for you. But I want you to take a moment to fill that out in the front. Just take it, and it may change before you leave here today. It's okay. Just give me a snapshot of where you are right now. That's what I want. Where's God leading you right now? Where do you think God's leading? Where's God nudging you to go? And then on the back of that piece of paper, take a moment, and it lists down some things that we might be able to do. Some people said to me, Pastor, if you just send out a devotional once a week, that'd be kind of a neat thing. It helps me to kind of stay focused. Some say, can you give me a prayer or something to pray? Or Maybe it's a small group Bible study, whatever. We got Bible studies, but some people say they can't go to them because it's the same old, whatever. But we want to do something a little different this year to help you to meet your goal. And it may be all by yourself or maybe with another person, whatever it might be. But why don't you take a moment to do that too on the bottom side. You all with me? So take a moment to just do that as you have a chance. You can talk to other people if you want to. Just write something down. We'd like you to turn those in at the end. You can put your name on them. We're not going to post them anywhere. And they all may change. But I want to share with people what some of our goals are for the end of the year, where God's nudging us, and especially the kind of programs we need to do, because we're going to be planning stuff at this church, and we want to make sure we're on task when February comes. So just take a moment to do that and share it, and to give us up what it might be for you. If you want to sign them, you can, but let's just take an opportunity to do that. As we move forward in our service together, and again, take time if you want to during this other time to do that, but we want to take up our offering. So if all the ushers will come forward, we'll receive our morning offering.